Hello, I'm Matt Bergman, and you are listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode 124. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman.
Yo, yo.
Yeah, we got Alexis Schlegel.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
C.W. Enser.
What's up, guys?
And Rachel Bussell.
Hello.
Yeah, so how's everybody doing tonight?
Pretty good, man.
Excellent.
Pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
Fantabulous.
So I think, big shout outs to Ron Paul today on his 82nd birthday. Just, I'm curious, like how many people here got into libertarianism through Ron Paul?
Me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd say I was already knew about it, but it was like I found out more about him when he was running, and then I think maybe economically, I think he, that's what. I was already on board on like the social issues.
Like I was
Libertarian
already into it, but even as somebody who was into it for probably eight years before I heard of Ron Paul, he definitely reinvigorated me.
Yeah, for sure. Yes,
Like,
I'd say the same.
And probably like at least 80% of the people that are in it right now got into it because of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about libertarianism. I was like more of a nationalist, and then I found out about him, and it was like, shit,
Yeah.
It just...
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
Yeah, he connected a lot of dots.
He was like the gateway drug to liberty.
Smoke this.
Yeah.
He'll
Is
be
anybody?
free.
I've had the opportunity to meet him a couple times. Anybody else get the chance to like meet him or?
No, dude, you trying to brag?
No, I'm just saying. But like,
Got to see him speak.
Just like he's such a genuine person. It's just amazing. Like he's such a genuine human being. Like when you meet him, when you hear him speak, and then you actually meet him in person, it's like no, he's the real deal.
That's
and
awesome.
It's he's just such a good person, and so happy birthday, Ron Paul.
I just listened to an episode of Entercast last night. It was from like a day or two ago, and Ron Paul was on there talking to Jeff
It was
Berwick.
awesome.
That's sick.
Yeah. I think it was like 24 minutes long or something.
Yep.
So
Nice.
it's not too long of a listen, but it was a good listen.
Did you just posted that, right? You just sent. I think you sent it on the PRL.
Maybe I
the
posted it
chat
in
group.
the PRL chat. I'm not sure.
So maybe we should post that up. But I didn't get a chance to listen to it. But yeah, I'd like to.
Jeff just like lets him talk.
Nice.
It
Nice.
was so good.
Yeah.
Does he say anything about anarchism on
Yes, he asks him about it in the beginning, and,
Yeah.
and Ron Paul's basically like, I think that's, that's our default state. He's like, he's a little skeptical, of course. Like, I don't know if it would work in the current state, but I think, I think everybody's born an anarchist.
He says
kind of.
self-government isn't that the ultimate goal? I mean, I think he says something like that.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Yep.
So, and he also asked him, where does Rand Paul differ from Ron Paul?
Oh wow, he got into it.
Yeah.
What do you
A
say?
little bit.
It's basically like he said, philosophically, he's like, it seems like Ron seems to equate himself and Rand as being very close. But he acknowledges the difference is in tactics.
Mm.
Like Randall sort of is more of like take a little bit where you can get it sort of thing.
Well, I mean,
Or just-
Or just actually be a politician.
but Ron took a lot where he could get it.
Right.
He did a lot of earmarks, and he explained it as like, the people in his district, that was the way for them to get back some of the money that was stolen from them. So,
No, he's talking more about tactics of like spreading the message or like achieving liberty.
Well, I mean, like actually, now I think I think Ron's tactic was 100% the message.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas Rand's tactic is more
Pragmatic.
Yeah, it's more like political.
Right.
Right.
It's two different ways of going about it.
But who's being more effective, or who's been more effective?
Who's been more affected? Ron, but who knows? Rand's got some time left to go. But yeah, I mean, I'm partial to Ron.
The other thing too is one. You have 460 some members of Congress, so you could be that loner. Whereas you're a U.S. senator, you kind of have to pick and choose your battles. Maybe I don't know. But,
Dude, I was actually talking to a friend.
It's a 6-year term as opposed to 2 years. So, you could just, hey, 2 years in Congress, I'm going balls out liberty, as opposed to like I got 6 years to be strategic or to kind of like,
Play your cards
it could just
out,
be,
yeah.
it could be the times too. I mean,
And he's still so young. You know,
Yeah.
think about how much Ron Paul's done, or like, you know, he's been is so heavily involved since the 70s.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm to the point where it's just like, yeah, I'm done with like the actual status quo, like politics.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of like,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
So I'm like, kind of like, give credit where credit's due when it comes to Rand, and then you know, just I don't know,
Yep.
kind of checked
I
out on
don't. I'm not sure if he's like. No, you're fine. I'm not sure if he's a good face for the libertarian movement in the sense. I think that he's sort of pigeonholed himself into the Republican Party. And
on like what issues, like what are you? How so?
nothing that I can recall off the top of my head, but just noticing both sides. Like if you mention Rand Paul, you know, oh God, another Republican. You know, it's just automatic. He's already
They
kind of.
associate him.
What about
Yeah.
somebody? What about somebody like Massey though? Like most people don't even really know about Massey.
I actually don't really know about Massey, so
he's
I
like,
couldn't tell you.
I mean, he's been on like the Ron Paul Liberty Report. I mean, he's basically a libertarian.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really good on some stuff.
Yeah.
Like, really good.
Is he? Because when I think about like what we need to do, sorry.
Okay, here's Massey. Okay, I think this is, to my knowledge, this is the coolest thing that he ever did. Right after Betsy DeVos was made head of education, okay, like the next fucking day, okay, Thomas Massey introduces a bill to end the Department of Education. You know,
Okay,
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Love him. Absolutely.
that's badass.
See, he hasn't been, since he's not really that famous. He hasn't really pigeonholed himself.
Yeah.
You know,
so he
yes,
hasn't
he's a
gotten.
Republican. He's got the R next to his name, but you know, he's a guy who could,
See, I'd like
if he got like the gumption to do it, he could possibly, you know, run for president.
Run for yeah.
But he's doing a lot of good work in Congress as much as he can. So.
He's pretty anti-war.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean he's definitely, I would say he's a libertarian.
Yeah.
I mean he might have some issues where, you know, maybe he wants a slightly bigger government than we would want.
I'm not even sure where they are.
I,
you know?
I don't
It's-
know. Yeah, all I've seen is just awesome stuff from him.
Yeah.
Jared, how's our sound, man? Like I've been getting I got a text message. Our sound's not coming through. Are we good?
Our sound's not coming through. You said?
Yeah, I don't know. I just got a random text, but I don't know. Everything
Um,
good? Everything all good? In
Oh,
do we have a? Yeah,
Oh shit.
we're good. We're good.
Really?
we're about to be good.
Yeah. All right. We're back on. We're back on.
Back on.
All right.
Okay,
Maybe we
so
should-
I mean,
So
we were getting video for. We should have been getting sound from that.
okay.
yeah.
So we did get some sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, I forget what were we saying.
We're just talking about like the state of, you know, those that are libertarian leaning that are actually in office. Rand, Thomas Massey, Justin Amash. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he's not bad.
he's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I guess maybe like out of the Ron Paul movement in 08 and 2012, I guess maybe we were kind of thinking maybe we had delusions of grandeur, but maybe we were thinking there would be more individuals in office that were like carrying the torch, you know, that would you know, take the baton and run with it. And maybe we were setting the bar too high, you know, U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate. Maybe we should be looking more at the local level, and I think that's where you can achieve the most through the you know, political system, if that's the route you want to go. I tried it a couple years ago, and it's, I don't know,
Right.
burns you out. It can really burn you
can
out.
imagine.
stressful.
Yeah, because you're dealing with like, you know, the sheep out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like,
And then the federal level, like you said, it's just that's just completely different. You know, you're dealing with special interests, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. All these people that make a lot of money off doing really bad things.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway,
All right. So
Yeah,
let's
so-
get into it. Let's get into, or go ahead, Matt. What you got?
So I'm saying the other big story of this week, I would say, has got to be Chris Cantwell. You know, what do you think? Do you think we're going to hear more of him, or do you think this is just going to end up being his 15 minutes of fame?
Dude, I think he's gonna off himself. To be honest.
Yeah, dude.
I thought that too. Oh my
Dude,
gosh.
he's like, dude, you're gonna hear, I don't know. That guy's fucking mentally unstable. That video that you posted, Jared, well, that when you send it in the chat, like,
Yeah.
he's fucking nuts. I mean, we already knew he was nuts, but the fact that you're crying.
Before you
Like-
got here, we were talking about how he's a meth head, So he's, you know what I mean? He's just gonna...
Dude, look at his what's with his mouth and his face, and like he talks out of the side, and he's all sketchy. Like he's just like jittery and jumpy, and
yeah, we were talking about how apparently he did meth on his show once.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that gets me, and I never really I never really liked him from the get go, because I just always thought like he was just one of those shock jock, I don't know, just never really liked the way he came off. He would always take things to the extreme and just being like for that shock value.
Yeah.
So I just never liked him to begin with, and then I like the fact that the Free State Project basically disassociated themselves from him. But I guess maybe in this whole aftermath, and maybe you guys talked about it last week, but with what happened in Charlottesville, like I'm just thinking, and I posted in the chat room, I'm like, where's this guy getting his fucking funding? In that Vice video, did you see the Vice video when they were embedded with him? And he's just showing off all his fucking firearms and this and that, and he gets to travel up and down and go to all these events.
And do
I'm
meth.
like, what? And
Maybe
he's
he's selling it.
Right. Well, I'm just.
I mean, he's
I'm
in the.
sure he has like some sort of Patreon or something set up to run his podcast or advertising.
He's got someone's
Whoa.
donating money.
Yeah.
Like people
But-
who believe in him are
Right.
giving him money.
Right.
It
Yeah,
has to be.
And then now you have all these websites. You have like PayPal. You have
Okay, Cupid.
Venmo.
Well,
or,
Wait, are you talking about the one oh I thought you were talking.
No.
No. Okay, so he apparently got banned from PayPal.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because
And he got banned from OK Cupid.
well, there's a lot of like Venmo, like all these like I listened to in the aftermath of like Charlottesville, like all these like third party payers and advertisers are basically like just basically pulling.
Shutting down their accounts.
Yeah, shutting down their accounts.
Yeah.
Like
Well, see,
you're
that's great.
associated with white nationalists. Yeah, it's great.
Dude,
that's the market.
That's the market, yeah.
That's the
That's
market
answering.
working.
Yep.
That's the market
Right.
working.
That's the thing. It's like the whole idea of like, okay, how are you going to punish bad people in a free society?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how you do it.
Ostracism.
That's how it would work
Yeah.
in
You
Capistan.
ostracize them. Like you if they can't
You're an asshole. Get the fuck out.
right. I mean, if they can't like send money, especially like in this sort of like digital economy,
Yeah.
it's gonna hurt them. It's
Yeah.
gonna hurt them where it counts, which is in the pocketbook, rather than like hurting us in the pocketbook to keep this guy in prison and feed him 3 squares a day and let him fucking lift weights all day.
Right. And become more like that Vice thing. He's like, I go to the gym. Like,
Well, dude, he did
I'm
get
like-
pretty. Like he lost
He
like a bunch
lost
of weight.
so
He's-
much weight
he
from the last
still
time
looks
that
like
I
a
saw
fat
him.
tub of
he
shit.
still looks like a fat, like.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. And then
No, I'm
also,
not saying he looks good.
It's
I'm
like,
just saying-
dude, you keep getting maced in the face. Just
Jared
get
thinks he's
fucking
hot.
safety glasses. Just
This
get
fucking
safety glasses.
asshole.
You fucking cock.
Wait, what
Like,
happened?
Like how many times he got maced at the rally? He's like, I got maced. They're like, by who? Some commies. And he's like, fucking commies. And I'm like, just get some safety glasses. Wear some safety
wear a
glasses.
mask.
Wear a mask. Wear some goggles.
some
like
fucking
trimming
scuba
a lawn.
gear, dude.
Wear some, like wear some goggles. Like you're a fucking idiot. Like I don't know. It's just a shame that like the media just like basically elevated these asshats. And the other guy.
Well, hold on. Speaking of the media, though, I think the one sort of surprising thing to me is how I'm not really seeing in these articles about Cantwell that are appearing on like mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing really any mention of libertarianism or his association with like the Free State Project or anything like that. Rachel
Yeah.
said she saw like one.
I
but,
saw one,
One
but
but I expected that to be like I was just worried about that. I was like, man,
Yeah.
you're gonna see all these articles and they're gonna tie, him back to libertarianism or.
Well, I think there was a Vice one or one of those where they refer to him as a libertarian fascist in there.
Well, that's
the
what
only
he
one I
calls
saw.
him. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
he
calls
said
himself,
something
yeah.
in one of the interviews where I read it, and he said I would want a libertarian government, and I just like my heart was like, oh no, you're not with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then that other guy and that other asshat in the Vice documentary, in that Vice news clip, that Matt Heimbach, he's from Maryland,
I know,
and he
yeah.
was at
I know
he was at Towson. He was that asshole that was trying to start the white student union.
Yeah,
And I remember, like in 2012, he would come to a lot of like Maryland like Republican events, like mainly through like C4L, like Campaign for Liberty, and like the Ron Paul movement. We're trying to make inroads with the Republican. We're trying to like spread the message of liberty. And this motherfucker, like, I don't remember some of my friends at the during that time were like, yo, this guy, like, he's off on the sidelines talking like, yeah, these fucking Jews, or saying like some very like white nationalist shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are like,
what?
we're
No.
like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, what? Like, just we're like, and you're a big Ron Paul guy, or like, I think you missed the message here. I think you're a little.
So this was before like Donald Trump, or
no, this was in like 2012, Jared. Like this
Really?
was like 2010, 2011, and I think he graduated from Towson. He was trying to start a white student union at Towson.
what the fuck?
And he basically was like, oh, there's taxpayer dollars going to black student union or Hispanic or Asian, this and that, and I'm like.
I get
the point of
but
that,
it's like you
but
should
at
be
the same
against
time,
that.
yeah,
Like, you should be against
In
all
all
that,
forms.
Yeah.
in all forms, not trying to start like
Your own,
not
yeah.
trying to be a welfare.
like I'm not trying to go out and start like my own government.
Yeah.
So that just his tactics, and then there were some undertones of basically white supremacy and nationalism and just
that's where he's from.
Racism.
Yeah, I mean that's the scene he's from originally.
Yeah, and it's like, and you saw these elements trying to infiltrate the libertarian or the liberty movement, and there was a lot of people that saw this from the get-go and squashed it, and that's why like I'm really glad that the Free State Project, I'm like, that they basically were like, no, we're voluntarily disassociating ourselves from you. Like, you can't come to an event. Like that's how you handle things, and just like, just through the market, through voluntary association, just all right. Well, cutting ties.
Yeah, and he's like, since he's been like ostracized more and more, but Cantwell by the libertarian community, he's pushed more and more extremely towards. White nationalism and and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see when he like completely implodes.
Oh, he already. I mean, the writing's on the wall.
Did he get arrested?
He has a warrant out or
wanted,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
But he probably would have to go back into Charlottesville, right?
Or Virginia or
The Virginia
something.
area. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing too, and that's what kind of what I question is like, where. And I wish that in that short Vice clip, it get into the more of the nuts and bolts. Like, where do you get your money? Where do you get your funding? The fact that you can travel all over and organize. Where are you getting your money? I mean, I guess maybe there's assholes, but what I'm getting at is who's the guy that organized it, who gave the speech on Sunday, who gave the press conference, who was booed off?
Richard something?
Spencer.
Yeah,
right.
Spencer, yeah.
He was heavily involved in Occupy Wall Street.
2013.
Was?
Really?
Yes.
No shit.
He was heavily involved. He was an Obama supporter.
Wait, Spencer was.
Spencer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Richard
Occupy.
Spencer.
Yes.
I thought it was another. I thought it was another dude.
Well, no, not Spencer. Spencer
yeah.
got punched in the face at the inauguration that you went down to.
Oh,
but
Spencer.
who's the fucking guy? God damn it.
Oh shit.
But on Sunday there was a press conference, and they basically had to get him out. The police had to get him out of there, and the crowds were like, "What? You're
yeah."
But I mean, they literally had to get him out of there because he was going to be
Kessler. Is it
Kessler?
Jason Kessler.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was heavily involved in Occupy Wall Street, and he was an Obama supporter. So what I'm getting at is I'm thinking that a lot of these white nationalist movements are getting funding from the very side, from the left, to basically foment
Like the
Civil War.
Are you saying that Soros funded?
Oh fuck yeah!
It's completely plausible.
I mean, I'm thinking because that's what I'm getting at. I'm like, where the fuck is this Cantwell? Because no libertarian, like, where does he get his money? Like, obviously, okay, so he had his podcast. Okay, so where
he doesn't have a fucking day job,
right?
Like,
what do you do for money? And the fact that he's just like, yeah, usually all these firearms
he
and all
was
this ammo,
complaining
and I
a
can
while
travel.
ago about like having to like move back in with his parents.
That's what I'm saying. Like who?
He's probably just penny pinching and getting what he can where he can get it. And if he's doing meth, I mean, there's money in that.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot of money in that.
Crank.
You'd be surprised at where people make their money and you don't even realize it.
I mean, I guess so. But to be so, I don't know.
I don't know about
maybe
Cantwell, but this other guy, that is very strange. How
the other guy's weird.
Yeah, like how do you go from Occupy Wall Street to
an Obama supporter,
white,
and a lobbyist for Occupy movement,
Yeah.
and heavily involved in that, and then all of a sudden just becoming like, alt-right
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about going from being an anarchist to that, but I guess there's some lines you could draw if you get very confused. But I feel like to go from like Bernie Sanders supporter to like white nationalist, like
that's
like a way. Yeah.
I mean, they're both socialists, so maybe that's part of the that's the link there.
That's true.
Because fucking Richard Spencer, he's like full on, you know. But it's got to be white.
Well, it's got to be
it's got to be National Socialism.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he said something. I feel like he said something sort of sympathetic to Marx at some point. You know, as well. You know, Marx was kind of right about capitalism.
Dude, these extremists, man.
Fucking
Like,
idiots.
extremists on both, like, I don't know.
So what do you think about the people saying that, you know, there's not two sides to this. There's just one side. Like there's only one side is wrong. And if you bring up the fact that like Antifa is also bad, then you're apparently like supporting like white nationalists.
I mean,
you know,
I see that, and I think both sides.
I mean, look, I would say, and the stats do bear this out, that the white nationalists are worse. But that's also like saying that like cancer is worse than like lymphoma, or cancer is lymphoma, but cancer is worse than like diabetes or something like that. We don't want either of those things in our bodies.
Right.
But you know, it's like this whole thing where like that's immediately the first thought I had was like there's no winning side on this.
It's
like,
it's typical. It's through the lens of the two-party. You got to pick a side. You got to pick and choose.
Someone's
you got
good,
to
someone's bad.
the lesser of two evils. You're forced in this, and it's like no, I don't. I reject both sides.
Yeah.
I reject all of this. Like this is all just a bunch of fucking bullshit. Like the fact that, you know, and the thing that the mainstream media, I feel as though the blood's on their hands in Charlottesville. You know, I mean, if they didn't make a big fucking deal about it, it'd be Cantwell and a bunch of other fucking basement dwellers that come out that have no fucking job, no skills.
We're shooting in a basement.
No, well, I mean,
well, a couple of them got fired from their jobs.
All right,
take
let's
it
put
easy
it
on the basement.
Let's put it this way. It would basically be a bunch of fucking idiots that have nothing going for them,
right? That
are showing up, and it'd be a non-story. It'd be a non-event. Be like, hey, look at these fucking idiots and their goddamn tiki fight.
Yeah, the best thing to do is to belittle them. But belittle and like shame them for just being,
the fact that they made a big deal about it. You know, you had people descending upon Charlottesville and creating a powder keg.
Yeah.
For something. I mean.
Well, what if it just to be like, you know, the devil's advocate.
Status advocate is what we call it.
Because from my understanding, not advocating for the state, but
no, I'm kidding.
My understanding was that the night before Saturday, when the protest was supposed to be, it was Friday night, and they were marching around the campus, and you know, what do we have now? 20-year-olds with Twitter. All they do is post it, and so the media gets hold of it, and they're like, "What the fuck is and if so many people in you know a place are amping it up and going, this is fucked up, the media is just going to catch on to it
the mainstream media is trying to remain relevant, so it's like, oh, this is trending on Twitter. Oh, let's get down to Charlottesville.
Well, I don't know so much relevant, but you know, if the people are talking about it, why wouldn't you address it? In a sense,
but
like I mean, if a politician doesn't address something, then you know he's an asshole.
They definitely made it worse.
But to play,
I don't think, to
play the devil's advocate,
double advocate,
I double devil advocate, dare you?
Like it's one thing to cover a story, but then it's another thing to cover it in a specific way that makes it, you know, that could result in more violence.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, if they cover, they're like, and you know, obviously they can't say like these guys are just, you know, basement dwelling virgins, but they could kind of like spin it in a, you know, kind of a similar way to just make it seem like this is just a joke. It's like the way they treat Kim Jong-un typically. Until recently, they were treating him like he was a big joke, which, you know, in a way he is, in a way he's not. But yeah, I think, you know, the media likes to pick up on these types of stories, you know, like they did with like Trayvon Martin, and they did with you know, all the shootings, you know.
They run with things that aren't news, and the things that should be news
aren't news.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so many, and we've talked about it on many podcasts. Is, you know, they focus on Trayvon Martin, but it's like not once did they really go into who was the guy who was choked to death in New York City for selling Lucy's. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like here's someone.
My theory
here's
on that
a legit case of murder on video of,
right.
and you're not or
because there's no story there. You can't bring in a bunch of like
to give them credit. They have been talking a lot about police brutality.
Well, he should have paid his taxes on.
I mean, that's
I mean,
but when they do, they spin it more towards like away from the state and more towards, you know, racism. Which yes, there is racism involved.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. However, I feel like they're not looking at it as a problem of government. They're looking at a problem of like a few bad apples or these very abstract
or a social structure
or
that's
social
kind
structure,
of been
They're not talking about the drug war that's contributing to this.
That pisses me off so much when people don't address the drug war.
Right.
I'm just like you.
I mean, that's kind of like going into you know, just the statues in Baltimore. It's like, you know, the fact that because the media like made a big deal about these there's maybe about 200, 300
in Baltimore?
Wait,
No.
what?
In Charlottesville, the Friday night with the tiki torches.
500 people.
Yeah.
What?
Was it 500?
Yeah, it was 500.
It was 500. Okay.
So because the media made such a big deal about that,
Jared,
because they were
exaggerating the numbers.
Because they were going to have a speech and they were going to have like a rally that was, you know, they got their license and permits and all that bullshit, which you shouldn't have to, but anyways. But they did all that, but because the media made such a big deal about it, now all of a sudden it's just like, you know, in Baltimore they took down the 4 monuments and it created a whole shitstorm. And here we are in Baltimore, and we're on schedule for like a murder a day, if that, probably beyond that. The drug war's running rampant. You know, it's
trash everywhere.
Yeah, heroin's actually
an epidemic.
Surpassed the murder rate, the deaths of heroin.
Really?
Yeah, they've surpassed
it's crazy.
it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
now
that
the statues are gone.
But now
Racism has been just evaporated overnight.
The statues
you don't have to
were
worry
removed
anymore.
by contractors overnight, and racism and the economy and the you know, it's all just gone away.
It just satisfies people's egos. That's with stuff like that. Like, do any of these people like? A lot of people could they even tell you where these statues were if they've been there before?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's one thing if like it's right outside your front door every morning. You get up and you're like, this kind of pisses me off that it's here. I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna show up at the town hall and voice my opinion, and then you deal with it on a local level. You know,
they should privatize all of them.
Privatize. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we shouldn't be building any more fucking statues using taxpayer money. Like that's obviously.
Yeah.
One thing I can say about the statues is I know that it's been in the works to remove them because of the connotation that they have with them and the disrespect that they have for those who were enslaved hundreds of years ago and who've suffered through racism. I mean, the person who went to school, the first non-segregated school, is still alive, and she's like 64. You know, it's kind of, when you look at it, it really was yesterday in how small our lifespan is here.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, they had been working on it for years, and then this happened, and they were like, you know what, it's time to just cut the cord and let it go. Even if it's not the most economical thing for them to do, that was they thought they were doing the best thing for society in bringing people together. Like, let's just get rid of these. Even though it tore people apart, and that's the only thing that I can really say about that.
I mean, it's fun. They on the local radio station, they actually interviewed. It was General Lee's grandson or great grandson.
I massaged him
92 years
once,
old in
a long
Bethesda.
time ago.
He lives in Bethesda. He's 92 years old, and they interviewed him, and he was like, you know, basically he said, well, he acquired slaves through marriage because it was the law, and as soon as the war was over, he released them. Like, after his wife died, it was like, all right.
Yeah.
So it goes back to, I don't know. It's like, so I just kind of like, I don't know. I kind of don't really have a dog in the race. Like, I don't have, like, I'm kind of like, the monuments are gone. Who gives a shit? The monuments are there.
It's a government
statue. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But the fact that all of a sudden, you know, it's just created such a shitstorm, and people are just like don't even want to recognize, like, actually look into the history of that time period. They just.
But it's not even necessarily the time period, though, because one of the arguments is that a lot of these statues were put up during the civil rights movement as like an anti sort of civil rights thing.
That's the thing too. Like a lot of the monuments where you look back, it wasn't like, oh, this was right after the Civil War. They were in place like early 1900s.
Or like during like Jim Crow.
The KKK was really powerful and in government.
And it was kind of like, you're not welcome here, darky. You're not welcome in this neighborhood. Beware, like, you know. And I get that. Like, but then you could go down the roads like of the redlining. I mean, there's been institutionalized racism, and as long as the government's involved, there's. You know,
every government statue should
every government. You know, it's like, and that's where I'm kind of coming from is like, and that's where, and we'll maybe get into that later. But there was on this one Facebook debate group, it was like Baltimore City voters. They had such a fucking hard on for removing these monuments and statues, and it's like, all right, now you're just encouraging these stupid fucking assholes in Charlottesville. Now you're just like, you're encouraging. You're basically encouraging more.
You're encouraging more protests like that.
Exactly. You're basically fomenting
more polarization
and more polarization and more.
But at the same time, if you think those things ought to be removed, I mean, you shouldn't be held hostage by extremist groups that might petition.
Yeah.
Understandable. But it should just be. I mean, it should just be.
But then where do you draw the line? Because I'm like, all right, so I posted a thing on like FDR, like an FDR monument. You know, he imprisoned.
Yeah, I posted that too.
And it's like, and I posted that in that debate group. I'm like, let me see if this moderator allows this to pass. I'm like, fuck it, posted it. And I'm like, when will these Democrats take down, like, you know, when will these Democrats take down this statue of FDR who imprisoned like thousands of Japanese Americans?
He didn't kill him though. I think that's the big difference. But what's funny though,
what's great about that is like people were fucking rationalizing this debate group. Well, that was kind of a black guy on FDR's legacy. And I'm like, here you go. Now you're picking and choosing. You're going through history books and you're basically like, well, imprisoning people with no due process isn't as bad as I'm like, now you're picking and choosing and your moral compass, and then they were defending like, well, FDR got us through the Great Depression, and he led us through World War II. And I'm like, motherfuckers, really? He made the Great Depression worse. And you look at the social programs he put in place,
paved the way for the welfare state
and the war. Exactly.
But they don't see it that way. They think the welfare state is good.
Here's what I'm getting at, and the problem is now all of a sudden, because of the monuments, it's just opening up like Pandora's box, and it's just opening up those that were indoctrinated in the government propaganda camps, i.e. public education.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because all it is the Civil War was all about slavery. FDR was a great president. Lincoln was a great president. You know what I mean? It's all the bullshit. People picking and choosing of what they've learned from the indoctrination camps at our public schools. You know what I mean? And it's just... And the other thing, too, there was a quote where it was a quote from 1984 where Orwell's like, you know, basically like remove the history, whitewash everything, remove it, where you're literally day by day, where life is just day by day, you know. And I posted that in this Baltimore City votes, and they're like, oh, it's not the same. These are, you know, and it's just all these snippets. These are monuments of slave owners, you know. Yeah. But they're missing the overarching, like the bigger picture.
Well, how many people on Mount Rushmore own slaves?
Exactly. Yeah. Where do you draw the line? Like what? We're going to remove... like, you know what I mean? Where do you draw the fucking line where you go through history?
Well, look, like here's the thing. Is this not a problem that could be solved by the market?
Easily.
If we agree... Okay, if we say we're going to tear down every public statue, I don't care who it is. Mm-hmm. If it was paid for by taxpayers, it shouldn't be up anymore because it's a waste of money.
Got it.
We tear down all of them. And then now it's hold on.
I disagree with tearing it down. That's going to cost money, dude. Just auction them off privately.
Okay, auction. But get rid of them. That's what I'm saying. Make them not publicly owned anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So now
auction them off would be great.
Now people may decide they want to put up their own monuments on private property. Mm-hmm. Right. So someone's like, all right, I'm going to put a Robert E. Lee monument up on my in front of my business. That's your property.
You can do what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then let's say it's a business. Mm-hmm. So they put it up there. If you disagree with that statue, what it stands for, you don't go to that business anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
or if it's in a neighborhood, like, I mean, if you're part of an HSA, or not HSA, an HOA. The HOA can say, well, we don't want any racist statues in our community, you know?
Yeah.
And then so that fixes that issue. Or like, I don't want to live next to this, you know,
and I think
racist statue or whatever. So it's like this, all these problems are really government created ultimately.
Yeah. And Rachel talked about it. You talked about it earlier. Like, looking back, that was only 150 years ago. You know, the fact
even
that
less.
When I heard on the news, I'm like, Jesus, like General Lee's, like his grandson or great grandson still alive. I'm like, well, I guess, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You know, you think about it, it's like, it's possible he's 92 years old in a nursing home, but it's like, and it's, I don't know, in times like these, like I revert to a lot of comedy, but it goes back to like Bill Burr, like his, I guess his last special, he talked about it. He hit on like racism, and he's like, you're fucking old. Like, things don't progress. Like, that's the thing about like, people look, they think things, and like, it's 2017, we should be beyond all this, but then you think about it, it's like, it wasn't that long ago. You know what I mean? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I was actually, the last time I went to PorkFest, 2013, my friend Alana came with me. If you remember her, yes, she's black, and I've known her for years, and she's one of my best friends, and we were hanging out with some guys from Upper Maine, and it was maybe the third day, and one of the guys, drunk as hell, comes up to me, he goes, I've just never interacted with a black person before. And I'm like, this is 2013. He was like 21 years old. And I'm like, what? He's like, I've seen him on TV, but I just don't know how to take her. I don't understand. And I my kindergarten teacher was black. Like, I've grown up around them. I don't have that perspective. And I feel like we can all live in a bubble, but there's people out there who've never crossed that line.
And even look at Maryland. But look at even a small state we live in. And look at, like...
I work in Sykesville,
you live up in Harford County.
Up north.
Yeah. I used to live in Eldersburg.
There was, like, 4 black...
Actually, that's where I work, in Eldersburg.
Yeah, my high school, when I graduated.
People say certain things, and there's, like... There'll be a black person behind the Rofo counter, and I'll go get a pack of cigarettes, and, like, people look at me funny for complimenting her hair, and they're like... And it's really? Old white people, and they just they're set in those ways, and they've taught it to their kids. And if their kids never leave their town,
we had kids riding around with like Confederate flags on the back of their trucks.
I've never been so surprised. I've massaged a couple people in and out up there that are younger, and they like, oh yeah, I've lived here my whole life, and I'm. You've never left? You've never gone and ventured out? Sometimes I go to Baltimore, but I don't really want to. And they're 20, 25 years old, voting, you know, they have their opinions about life, and they won't interact with black people because they just, no, it's okay. Yeah. It's interesting to see the division, and it's, if you look back, a really good book to read is The New Jim Crow Law by Michelle Alexander. And it goes into how the whole social structure really like influenced the way we are now. And even in real estate, they separated by race.
Oh,
you know,
it was right.
Real estate,
redlining neighborhoods.
Absolutely. And they would bring you're white, we're not going to show you these houses, we're going to show you these houses. And now, like Howard County, you know, it's every other neighbor is from a different nation. It's,
the whole banking and mortgage and the banks. I mean, you look at it.
All right, Bernie.
Well, no. But you look at it. I mean, look, that was only 150 years ago. I mean, like, to think like, oh, the Civil War, like, slavery's over. It's like, but then you had Jim Crow laws. And then you had the Civil Rights Movement. And then now it's like you have the war on fucking drugs that is the most racist, you know, and yet, let's remove these fucking monuments. You know what I mean? Like, get the fuck out of here. And you know,
pick and choose, man.
Yeah. And all these individuals on city council and city of Baltimore.
I will say it is easier to remove monuments than to stop the drug war.
Well, yeah, but
I want to see the same people that are getting upset about the monuments also getting upset about.
Maybe this is the time to plant that seed and to come at it from that aspect and be like, dude, you know, these monuments are the start. Look at the drug war. Like, look at. Don't get mad at them for having their perspective. Take it and find where it is that you can intercede and go, oh, okay, this is how we need to look at it to get them to see the massive idea from everything.
Sometimes, like, I'm at that point though where it's like, God, I don't even want to. Like, sometimes I'm like, Jesus,
it's a fight.
Like,
it's a fight. It really is.
Just posting that things on that page, and I'm like, oh goddamn, you're resorting to like, you know, seventh grade social studies class. You know what I mean?
But they don't know that. Some of them
I just don't want to engage. I don't even want to get in.
But are you approaching it from the angle of like you want to debate these people out of these ideas, or doing what she said, like kind of being like, oh yeah, you know, that's a good point, but
hey,
here's
maybe,
something
what
that's
about
even
this
more
too?
racist.
Yeah.
I guess so. I guess maybe I've lost the energy to try to engage with people on social media because I think sometimes on social media it's just things are lost.
Yeah.
Like
Sometimes I think you have to ask the questions. You have to be like, well, what about this? One thing with the whole Civil War not being about slavery. If you read all of the articles of secession, each and every one of them mentions slavery as a reason for seceding. And then the entire Confederate Constitution, like, literally is mostly about slavery, other than the bureaucratic stuff. And it's like, when you look at it, you kind of have to go, well, wait a second. There was a lot. Yeah, not all of it was about slavery, but a lot of it was. It's like this 50-50 split between states' right and slavery. But then they go, oh, it's about states' rights, but none of the states can free their slaves. None of the states have the right to abolish slavery in their own constitution. So you're taking away the rights of your own states, but arguing that we need state rights. What? No, you're contradicting yourself there.
Yeah.
Like,
well, are you familiar with the original 13th Amendment that was proposed?
About slavery? They were going to put it in.
Yeah,
but then they didn't.
It actually passed in the state and the Senate, but apparently through some loophole it was trashed. But apparently to save the Union, and I also read that then Lincoln was in on it too. To save the Union, they were going to allow the states to have slavery. And it was an amendment protecting them from ever having the government taking that right away from them. So, right there, and this is in 1861. So this is basically like, okay, guys, come back together as a country. This is, and it just showed that slavery really wasn't the most important reason for the, at least the power structure didn't think of that if they approved that.
I think maybe that it was more of they realized that slavery was a big thing, and that's how they were going to get the Union to stay together, and it didn't work. And that's why, the Emancipation Proclamation, but
it wasn't the most important thing, because that wasn't enough to bring
it was still a big thing, so big that it caused.
It wasn't enough to bring the
happen.
Confederacy back to the Union, and also it wasn't big enough to make it a deal breaker for the North, apparently. So it's what was going on though. There was a 40% tariff going on Southern resources. And so the South's, counter response to this proposed 13th Amendment was, no, well, if you cut back the tariff to 10%, we'll do it.
A lot of it was industrialization. The South wanted to be, because they realized the agrarian, basically the.
But it really just comes down to the same thing that pretty much every war is about, economics.
The government.
It's all economics. It's economics, but they usually it's usually in the guise of, war is always sold in the guise of humanitarian aid.
So what if
not freedom, just all the bullshit. But what it comes down to is economics, and the South wanted to become more industrialized because I think, bottom line, with the cotton gin, with industrialization of farming, they realized that owning people isn't really. it's going away, and the whole Western world abolished slavery through peaceful means. And then the South was also buying a lot of industrial goods from England. So the northern states were putting higher tariffs on goods coming from the northern states on industrial equipment, machines, etc. to the southern states. In turn, because it's all economics, the southern states were importing goods from England and from Europe. And it was going to go... It's all economics. It's all economics, and it's sold in the guise of slavery, which, yes... It was in those.
Yes, and in hindsight, of course, people today believe that slavery, and I include myself to be one of them. I assume everybody here thinks this as well. That slavery, was the most important thing. If you could just end slavery. But the bullshit about the war is it wasn't about slavery. But that's the way that the North has been able to rewrite the history books to make the government look like the good guys. When in actuality, Abraham Lincoln was probably a bigger bigot than Robert E. Lee.
Well, he turned the guns. Fort McHenry. He turned the guns that were
on Baltimore.
Baltimore City because there was so much insurrections because.
Maryland I think the first person to get shot or the first person to die in the Civil War was in Baltimore. Because it was some sort of riot that started when
The northern troops were coming through because there was a train, I guess from Penn Station to like Camden Yards, where Camden Yards is. Like literally, the northern troops like marched through Baltimore because that's how they transferred like trains.
Yeah,
and there was riots, like they were. Yeah.
Well, Maryland was a southern state, so yeah.
But, yeah, so it, it's I don't know. That's where I think it's, this is what this discussion we should be having about the real history, like what, and not like, oh, just remove these monuments and everything's going to be a-okay, like everything's going to be great, like.
I think it's a good conversation starter. And when I was talking to one of my friends who's very liberal and who was very, this is scary, da-da-da, and I was like, well, look at it this way. This is like that climax of everything. Everything's coming to a head, and this is when everything's going to kind of sort itself out. As fucked up as it is in the way it's happening and the way it's going down, that's what happens in society. We evolve, we learn how to talk, and we learn how to discuss things and figure out better ways. And thank God it's not back in the day with no social media where we have to kill each other to get our points across. And we can like have discussions and stuff like that as,
Although sometimes on social media, I wish that sometimes you talk to some people and it's like, let's just duel it out in the street. Like, no.
Some fucking Burr shit.
Yeah,
Hamilton Burr shit.
But I think a lot of the history is lost, and I think a lot what is lost is the fact that, like, this wasn't too long ago. We're not so far removed from, and by just removing these monuments and just forgetting, it's not going to go away. Like, and not only that, but you look at the Civil War. Look how the North just decimated the South. I mean, General Sherman burnt Atlanta to the ground. Burnt Atlanta to the ground. You wonder why Southerners have an animosity towards Northerners to this day. The fact that things aren't forgotten. And it's not, and that's what I can't stand about the focal point just being strictly, slavery's fucked up. It's fucking disgusting, what happened in that time period. But let's put it this way, not at, like, some of these monuments of, and again, they're taxpayer funded, which I completely disagree with, but you look at the bloodshed, like 600,000 plus that died in the Civil War, right? Not all those motherfuckers, like, what? I guarantee, like, maybe not even less than 1% of them actually own slaves.
Well, that's what, dude. I was literally just thinking that. I was like,
it was like the elite.
I mean, the real travesty is that
it's the fact that they died in a war. It was all based on fucking lies.
Yep. Right.
It again, the biggest tragedy in any war is the truth. Or that's the number one casualty in every war is the truth, and that's the thing that's just is lost, is the fact that all that bloodshed for something that was sold in the guise of slavery, and those that died, they didn't have anything to
actually
win.
Yeah, I don't believe the war was sold in the guise of slavery since then at all. I think the people back then, I think if you could, who
knows how it was.
I think if you could bring some of them over here in the fucking DeLorean, and you ask them what it was about, I don't think a lot of those people would tell you about slavery. Yeah. I do believe that there are people living at that time who saw slavery as the most important thing that had to go. There were, but as I said before, with the 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment that almost passed back in 1861, you had a lot of people that were willing to keep slavery legal, make it constitutionally legal, to preserve the Union. Because ultimately, it was about, think about all that tax revenue the federal government's losing. Oh, yeah. And then think about Lincoln's like personal. Think about Lincoln. He's not going to want to be the president who has like the country split up on his watch.
Yeah, basically, Lincoln Unmasked, really good book. I haven't read this one. I started reading The Real Lincoln, Thomas DiLorenzo. But Lincoln wanted to preserve the Union at all cost, and it's more centralization of the federal government. That's all Lincoln wanted. And I don't know. I guess maybe one of the benefits of getting off Facebook is I need to really get into like all these books that I've bought and yet to read, because I think maybe basically being on social media
up and then jump back in.
Yeah, I think now. Yeah, I think I need to like get off a little bit and then like read up and then get back in the fray, because I I mean, because I thought maybe I read while speaking of Ron Paul on his birthday in his Liberty Defined chapter. I marked it off. It was he had one chapter dedicated to slavery, and I thought it'd be a little bit more like. I mean, he definitely brought up the fact that like, you know, the Western world basically abolished slavery through peaceful means, and he did, you know, speak about that. But I definitely want to get into reading The Real Lincoln Unmasked. This other book I got was just about the Uncivil War, just about shattering historical myths, you know, because I mean, on Facebook the past week since Charlottesville, it's just everybody all of a sudden is a history major, you know, and they're reverting back to what they learned in their indoctrination camps in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade.
Well, and it's hard to have like conversations right now because people are so extreme to one side or the other, and they just want to hear what they want to hear. And I don't think it's calmed down enough to where people
Alex,
can,
are you a
can
racist?
speak.
No. Well, that's the thing.
How
If I speak anything other, I'm a white, privileged, racist white male.
See, that's the biggest.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so how would you approach it differently?
I think maybe I need to take a step back, and that's kind of why I was like, all right, I'm going to log off Facebook. I'm going to get rid of the app on my phone because that's what makes it so much easier. You
to
just
get
go on your
into,
phone
yeah.
and you could just scroll, and then you could just like...
I hate you, I love you, I hate you.
I hate you, I love you, shoot a comment, say some shit, you know. Or you post a meme and then just, you know, a lot of times just go... I don't know. I just... had to step away from it.
That's why I left Gary Johnson's dank meme stash.
Really? Oh yeah. You had to.
I had to be like, nope, I can't do this anymore.
It's just.
But I asked you that because as soon as you start talking about that stuff, and you question the official story or whatever, even if you're wrong,
You're right.
people will just assume that your intentions are all just racist. Like,
Right.
You're like this subconscious racism within you won't let you accept the fact that Abe Lincoln wanted to free all the slaves. You know?
No, he was a slave owner himself.
Everyone was.
Yeah,
back then. It was the
law.
way of the. It was what you did.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the Ron Paul thing. I'm not sure what you mean by the free market ended slavery, because I know he only freed the slaves in the South and not the North, and there were abolitionists at the time. But if he hadn't done the Emancipation Proclamation, would it have eventually been solved over time, or would it have lasted longer? Like, what were the social implications of him doing that, even though he didn't have the best intentions? And one thing my little sister taught me, who's actually becoming a historian, was that we like to do the whole, this person's good, this person's bad, without looking at everyone's flaws. And even the people that we idolize and think that are really good also had some bad parts.
Yeah.
So where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line of, oh, he was a slave owner, but they were fighting, in these people's perspectives, you know, they were fighting for their slaves.
Like I went to, well, he in this chapter, he spoke about two abolitionists that in Wendell Phillips and another, he spoke about two, William Lloyd Garrison and Wendell Phillips as like two abolitionists of that time period that basically moved the ball, like basically, and he was basically saying Phillips was the lesser known, but put things like, so he spoke about the fact that society was already like moving in that direction, and he spoke about politicians, i.e., and I think without saying it, was talking about individuals like Lincoln, who are basically weather vane candidates, because that's most politicians. All right, look at Baltimore City. You had all these dickheads on city council for like years, right? They don't give a fuck. But then all of a sudden, like, put Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all these left, like, so all these good old boy Democrats have to remain fucking relevant in Baltimore City. So what do? Well, in the middle of the night, we're gonna spend, $100,000, and we're gonna bring in a bunch of contractors with cranes and lift these things out of here. You know what I mean? Just to fucking remain relevant, because they have no backbone. They don't give a they're politicians.
But that's how they do it.
Exactly.
That's how they remain relevant. That's one of the...
And I think that's what Ron Paul was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, in this chapter, was like, they're not
Lincoln's,
legit. They're not genuine. You can't be one, so...
Yeah. It's a hard one because people read the headlines. They don't delve into it. They get told what they're going to think. They watch, Glenn Beck and go, oh, this is what I should be
Is he still
thinking.
around?
I think so.
Okay.
My grandmother still watches him from what I know. But, oh, grandmother. But the average person sees that as some glorious thing, and then they see us going, what the fuck? And they're like, oh, you're racist. And it's like, well, wait a second.
Yeah.
I think in the Libertarian Party, we're approaching it wrong. And I don't think that we should support Antifa or be like, oh, what they did was right. I think we should go, oh, yeah, no. Yeah, those were kind of racist. They probably should have come down. But maybe we shouldn't be spending our money on these things. Right. Why are we spending our money on statues? Why are we... Look at all the people who I don't know what the government should be spending their money on, but look at the other things that we could be doing.
The government shouldn't
with
have
this.
any money.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they removed them, and now they're like, well, what are we going to do with them? And they're talking about putting them in storage, and the cost of storing them. Where the fuck?
I think
you got this giant General Lee statue. Like, you go to a public, like, you're paying out that
museum.
Fucking auction it all.
Take it to Gettysburg.
Right. And then they're talking about Annapolis.
Were you here last week when Alex? You weren't here.
No.
So Alex was talking about he went to some Eastern European country that used to be Soviet, and obviously since it was Soviet, they had from the past they had a bunch of like Stalin statues
from the
and shit
Bolshevik
like that.
Revolution.
Yeah. So they so instead of like tearing them down and like burning them or like destroying them, they put them in a museum.
Okay, yeah.
And like they actually have like apparently they have a Soviet style car or a Soviet made car sitting in the front of this museum that's like made out of wood and shit. It just like is like a
just to mock them.
Yeah, exactly. It's all
like
just to mock them.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would be something to do. Like for the people that are saying like, well, we don't want to whitewash history. Okay, fine. Well, first of all, I think that's a stupid argument because there's plenty of fucking books around.
There's books.
We're in
there's
the day of
libraries,
the internet.
please.
Yeah. But I mean, all right, if you want to like kind of kowtow to those people, you can put it in a museum or whatever. Hopefully a private museum.
I think the biggest, from what I've seen people go, oh, museums. And I agree, take it down, put it in a museum. Put history where history belongs.
Right.
Like, we don't need to be glorifying fucking government, especially government that we weren't there, we don't understand, and sure it's trying to, I mean, and you got to think about it from that time period when they erected those. They didn't have social media. They didn't have the internet. They had, they needed memorials to remember those things.
Yeah.
I'm sure a library was a 10-mile walk.
Yeah.
Like, it's also comes with the time period.
Let's go to the park and let's have a teachable moment. Here, kids, 50 years ago or 60 years ago, there was Civil War.
So we can see the relevance of it, but, I mean, it's not erasing history, especially when we have such a strong record of history right now.
I think I just want to put up a Lysander Spooner statue in my front yard.
Yes. Go for it, man.
Yes.
Let's start a GoFundMe page.
Spooner being a abolitionist prior to the Civil War and during, while at the same time being pro-secession.
Nice.
You mean anti-secession?
No, he was pro-secession.
There was a really good article in the aftermath of Charlottesville on Liberty Hangout. Was like the only, and I posted that article, and a lot of like my left-leaning friends were like, yes, because secession really worked well the first time, and I'm like, well, it could have if the North just allowed it. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have to fight a bloody civil war. If the South would just succeed, maybe 10, 20 years, slavery would have just gone away because
Lincoln could have, first things first, just repealed the Fugitive Slave Act. Any slave who got across that imaginary line, would be free.
Exactly.
And then, even if you had people going in, and I'd be all for this, going in and... civil disobedience, basically, and going after slave owners. I think if any slave is to kill a slave owner, I believe they're 100% justified in that.
Yeah.
What about a non-slave to kill a slave owner?
And if you would have actually had a war like that over slavery, it's like, dude, I'm all about it. But the actual Civil War was all over fucking tariffs. It was all over government fucking theft.
Well, going back to the Fugitive Slave Act, in Havre de Grace, there's just one bed and breakfast that I stayed in. It was like a wedding I went to like 3 years ago, and it's actually in it was part of the Underground Railroad, and it has this huge wraparound porch, and you can still go in there, and they have a trap door underneath the wraparound porch, and it would go underneath, and there was a hidden staircase like up through the chimney. And
Nice.
the owner of this, and there was all these like pictures and everything, like Civil War history and this and that, and like the owner of the house, it's been in this lady's family since the house was built. The historical records don't even know exactly when the house was built, because it was before the city of Havre de Grace, like before they actually kept records.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But it's right on the Chesapeake Bay where the Susquehanna River meet. So like at night, her great grandfather would run the slaves through the dead of night, runaway slaves up the Susquehanna River.
That's awesome.
Into Pennsylvania and take he was a steamboat captain, would take this was before the Conowingo Dam, so they would take her great grandfather was a steamboat captain, would run the runaway slaves up the Susquehanna River into Pennsylvania and turn them over to the Quakers. You know, like fucking like the fact, I don't know, like the history, and that's a thing where I think is lost, is just all like that. I don't know, even in that dark times, there was still like, you know, people that were
Trying
willing,
to do the right thing.
doing the right
Yep.
thing,
Yeah.
and government be damned and law be damned. You know,
Well, that's why, you know, authoritarianism and like respect for authority is such a dangerous thing.
exactly.
And like the people, you know, and I don't mean like, oh, if you're an authority on computers, like we should ignore you. I mean like government type authority. Like I can tell you what to do. I can control what you do, because, you know, the people, like the only people that end up being the heroes in these stories are like the anti-authoritarians, right? Like the people who were, taking the Jews out of Germany into Denmark on boats, or hiding them in their houses, you know, like Anne Frank stuff.
Yeah.
Like those are special people, because most people just fell lock and step in line
With what was
with what was going on. Like, and these aren't necessarily bad people, right? They were just, you know, it's like the Stanford prison experiment.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, that's like my favorite like experiment, because it just shows like how it's not really the people, it's the structure that they're put in, or the situation that they're put in. You know, but it is a few people that are in charge that end up being like the real evil people.
Mm-hmm.
But regular people just get put in these situations, and they, they become just ruthless people, just immoral people.
Yeah.
And
Power corrupts.
Power
I mean,
corrupts,
they've done studies with like, it's been a long time since I've looked at them, so I might be wrong, but that power was equivalent to cocaine in its addictiveness, and it makes you feel like this egotistical badass, like you can do anything. And in the Stanford prison experiment, you see have you seen the video or the movie?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I think I watched it in like sociology class in college.
Oh, okay. There's they made a movie about it. It's on Netflix now, with the guy who played Lafayette in True Blood. I don't know if any of you saw that.
No.
But he anyway, it was just crazy to see the power change the people, and how they did it in the actual study. It's crazy how that happens. And then you look at the politicians, and we get someone in power, and you see that power just kind of take over them, and you know, I can do it. I can walk here. I can do this. I can do that. You know how many politicians steal thousands of dollars? They just fired someone yesterday, I think, who admitted accidentally to a reporter that he does no work at all, and he makes $147,000 a year, and he got fired like immediately when they heard it.
And there's another experiment too, that's not really related to power. It's more just like obeying. And it was like an experiment. I don't remember all the different facets, but basically there was somebody in a room, and then there was somebody outside the room kind of looking in through like glass or whatever, or glass window. And the other person was like strapped in with like these sort of like electrode things.
And they could
the pain
they could choose
one?
to shock them.
And so they chose to shock them, but they had the scientist who was like directing the study would tell them to push the button.
Yeah,
and it wasn't actually, and so it wasn't actually like shocking the person, but they were an actor and they were pretending to be shocked.
Yeah. Right.
And like,
Most people did it, didn't they?
Like pretty much everyone did it. Yeah, it was like maybe
orders.
It was like 95% of the people or something that did it, and like even though like the people were like screaming in pain, you know,
what's that called?
they kept Zimbardo, I think it was
They
the guy's
did it on
name.
a French TV show.
There's some podcast I watched.
feel
They were
like
talking about that for a
a while
while.
ago.
Oh really? They like
yeah, it was. I
reenacted it?
saw a French. Yeah.
And like,
Anybody,
and the weirdest thing was like these people reported that
Someone's
they
probably
didn't.
got to be commenting on it now, like, because shit, it's slipping my mind right now.
But the craziest thing was the people reported like that they felt very uncomfortable doing it, but they felt compelled to do it
because of that authority,
because of that authority figure. They were like
telling them
they completely like
this
advocated.
is for science. This is for like part of the experiment.
They
You gotta
advocated all their rational thought and like just common sense of like this person's suffering. Like this is not good. You know, their moral intuitions were out the window, and they were just following orders.
It's amazing.
And this is what happens all over, you know, every time you have tyrannical governments or really any government.
I'm just doing my job.
Or even in the case of like somebody like if you start idolizing somebody like Chris Cantwell, and you sort of abdicate your reasoning, or like Stefan Molyneux now.
Oh my god!
Like,
what happened to him?
I don't know.
I know.
He
Same
was so
thing.
cool,
Yeah.
and now he's
posted a few things recently that were a little better that I've watched.
yeah.
like a little better. Like
He's not defending like the neo-Nazis, is he?
I
He hasn't
haven't
gone
seen
that
anything
far.
about that, but he did have a good one on the North Korean situation and brought up like the warfare state and stuff and why it's bad where we're at, you know, and all that stuff.
Oh,
but,
I mean, he's definitely still anti-war, but he's pro-government in like things like borders.
yeah,
and, and like immigration, you know, and all that stuff. And
but his old stuff, I still like his old
A
stuff.
lot of people went off the
Yeah,
rails
you know.
as of late.
yeah,
I feel like once they get their heads so big and think that, oh, I'm so smart, and everyone tells them, gives them that ego
Yeah.
boost, they just go with it, and then they, you know, you hit your peak and you trail off into some crazy land. You start thinking of conspiracies and whoops, and this, that, and the other.
No,
yeah.
definitely.
Well, and what I was gonna say was, so like, but then people will like sort of abdicate, even when they're interested in these ideas, they find someone like Molyneux, and if they turn off that part of their brain that's critically thinking, they're just everything he says are like, oh yeah, that's right, and then he goes down this weird path, and these people just follow him down that weird
It's
path.
okay because
Almost-
he's
Yeah,
saying these
right,
things,
and it's like
in a cultish
admire
way.
him.
Yeah, and it's hard to do because you know, when he's saying a bunch of awesome stuff for so long, you just kind of just start to be like, well, obviously
Maybe
he's just
he's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is hard. It's not easy to do. You know, it's. I think it's a lot easier to disobey politicians.
Well, my
But-
great step grandmother was from Holland, and I remember talking to her, and she remembers. She's passed now, but she remembers listening to Hitler on the radio and going, he was a very powerful, inspirational, like charismatic speaker. I wanted to believe him. It's amazing what the power of what people can do and say and speak that
Yeah.
will make them do things. You know, preachers.
Yep.
Right, and especially, you know, like in that situation where you're coming out of, you know, basically a depression, you know, everything's fucked up, and you're kind of looking for hope, and here comes a guy with some super crazy ideas, but you're like so desperate, you're like, but maybe he's right, maybe it is the Jews.
Well, and the mob mentality, you know, you're
Yeah.
kind of looking around at your neighbors or the other people around you, and they're kind of like, well, is this cool? Like, do you agree with this? Yeah.
Oh, that's
It's
also
okay,
like
yeah.
So there's another. I read this book. It's called Influence. It's by Robert Cialdini, and he talked about it's kind of about how to influence people. But I mean that definitely applies when we're talking about this authority stuff. But there's something called the bystander effect. So they found. So like let's say there's like you're in the middle of a park and there's like 20 people in the park and they're kind of all standing around, and then someone starts getting mugged in the middle of the park. Well, there's a great chance that no one's going to do anything about it. And it's not because these people are cowards. The problem is you kind of look around and you see, okay, is anybody else doing anything about
waiting
this?
for the first person to act.
You're waiting for the first person to act because your
yeah.
mind's like, oh, I'm not sure if this is really like a mugging I'm witnessing because like no one else is reacting to this. So you're looking for like social context cues.
Okay.
We're social beings.
We're social beings. So, but you know, if it was just you in the park and then another person gets attacked, you're much more likely to defend that person.
Yeah.
And they did this all sorts of different experiments with different situations, and this like always held true that most of the time, people aren't going to act. So the key in that situation is actually to just be aware of that thing and act. Or if you're the person getting attacked, you point somebody out specifically and you say, "Hey, I need help. Come help me." Because even if you just say like, "I need help," no one's going to do anything because they're like waiting for someone else to take charge.
To see them do the... Well,
Right.
have you ever... anybody do horror movies? The Mist? Did you ever see that?
Yeah, God, it's...
Where they're...
Oh, the M. Night Shyamalan one?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
actually
I never saw it.
pretty good.
Really?
I got mad at him for... wait, was it The Mist? Or...
I thought that was one everyone hated.
There was one where everyone killed themselves because of the fucking trees.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Was that the Red Forest or the Red something?
The Mist, they were all locked in the
Yes,
in
they
the
were all
grocery
locked
store,
in
and
the
that was
grocery
that was a
store.
really good example of
Yes.
when mob mentality and people, the one woman becomes like this cultish,
And she gets people to
religious-
listen to
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think like the antidote to that is just sort of educating people to just be skeptical of authority.
Mm-hmm.
Someone tells you to do something, go, why?
Yeah, go why, and also have a moral,
Compass.
a moral compass and a set of principles where you can kind of, oh wait, this person's asking me to go murder this person, but that person they're asking me to murder didn't really do anything. They didn't aggress against me or someone else. They didn't steal from someone else. They didn't kill someone else. Obviously, this is wrong. I shouldn't do this.
Yeah, I think that's lost in these some of these Facebook groups or just on social media in general. It's just turned into echo chambers where it's just this progressive, just one-upping of others, and it's not. No one takes a step back and try to throw things out there like, think about this a little bit or do a little more research or maybe don't just jump to conclusions just yet. Think, maybe
or shut down debate by calling you a racist. Or
exactly. It
homophobe
just
or
turned
something like that.
exactly. They're not.
Or a liberal snowflake.
Or it goes both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what or who your audience is. You just get these. It's tough being the voice of reason these days. It's tough.
It's tough, man.
Well, even one Facebook group posted Intellectual Takeout, I believe, and they're normally libertarian, and they posted an article, Study finds marijuana causes degenerative brain disorder. One study that has not been replicated found that use of marijuana might cause Alzheimer's.
Oh, I better stop.
Might. And it was just like, and the comments, and people were like, see, that's why all these stoners are Democrats and stupid that's trying to make it legal. And like, did you even fucking read this, what the study's conclusion was? It wasn't a conclusive thing.
Yeah.
It was, it might. It could possibly lead to this. And people just take one thing and they go with it. And it's hard to reason with people in that. And you got to get creative, honestly. You got to get creative with finding the different ways and the different aspects of going about it.
Yeah, people want their biases satisfied. Like, that's what they look for. They look for what they want to hear and stuff like that. And then, that's it, So.
They just want to win, too.
Yeah.
A lot of times they just don't want to think like, well, maybe let me get a little more perspective on this. They just want to win an argument.
Well, that's why I hate those debate groups. And I won't join them because they're just like... Yeah. It's just racking up points. It's like, well, if I can get this guy to like rage quit, then I win. You know, instead of like, are we actually like trying to like progress towards truth? Are we trying to actually discover?
I think
something.
The truth gets discovered. I think what happens is the people who are all gung ho, and I do it quite a bit. I find myself, you just argue back and forth, and you pull up facts, and it's not necessarily you and who you're debating with that you change the minds. It's the people reading it, the lurkers, the people who don't comment, the people who don't click. They're the ones who go, huh, and then they go and look things up and find out for themselves. And I think
because they don't have like a dog in the fight.
So it's tough and it's annoying and it's like it gives you anxiety and you get angry with it. But I think in the end, it's a good thing to have the people who are willing to talk about it.
Yeah, that's a good point because I think maybe in that one Baltimore City votes, like I just posted the FDR thing, going back to that, and I was just like, just reading back some of these comments, like one guy, I mean, he must have wrote multiple paragraphs. I'm like, dude, it's a fucking meme. Like, and then,
dude, yeah, I hate that
but then the funny thing was, I just was like, who's this guy? But because he basically said, his funny thing was ironic. He was Asian American, or I don't know, and he basically was like, yeah, although FDR imprisoned a bunch, that was like a low point of his presidency. And I'm like, dude, you would have been fucking locked up.
Yeah, imagine if Trump went around and just imprisoned all the Muslims.
Like, we're going to war with North Korea. Anybody that looks like anybody who's
going to
Korean
jail,
or Chinese are going into a camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm just like, oh God, I got to get the fuck off this shit.
Relativists, man.
Yeah,
Everybody's a moral relativist.
And I'm like, wow. So, but going back to what you said, Rachel, is like I'm looking at everybody who's commenting, or people like the hype men who are like, yeah, like all these motherfuckers just chiming in with their fucking one-liners, like, yeah, motherfucker, man, like Asian guy with 50 paragraph comment, yeah, fuck you, Alex, white privilege, white guy, like, and I'm like, and I'm just like, oh God, I gotta get the fuck out of here. But how many people maybe read through and were like,
I was a part of a
plant a couple seeds.
Where do you
Where do you draw the line?
Where do you
that's
draw
why you've
the
always got to
line?
make sure, like you got to be conscious of the fact that people are reading it.
Yeah,
like, people
and I guess
are looking
sometimes
on
that's lost in social media. You get so consumed with the comments and that,
and the context, you forget that there's people listening.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I always try to just not be a dick. Like, no matter, even if the other person's being a dick, I'm just gonna respond with just
and sometimes things
facts and whatever my argument is.
And the problem is too, it's much better to actually have a face-to-face conversation with individuals, because then you can pick up on sarcasm, tone. You can pick up on.
It's completely different in person.
Oh yeah, and then you get these.
You can't. Oh my God.
Oh, you get.
I always think
you get
about
these assholes that are like real like keyboard warriors. I'm like, dude, say that shit
to my face.
Dude, you would not say that shit. Like,
yeah.
It's
that's
like you get
90%
these
of the internet. Though.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like these. It's like. Hence, going back to our former top, people like Cantwell. It's like, dude, you're a tough guy online, but then you got maced in the face multiple times. Like, you're an idiot. Put some safety glasses on. You won't have. Like, that's the problem. It's like there's so many, like, just.
I think it's hilarious that he showed up with, like, several guns. It's like, what are you going to do,
dude?
Like, first of all, like, Jason Stapleton pointed out, is like, if you know how to use a gun, you only need to carry one.
Right? He had
a bunch of rifles and shit.
Yeah, like, what are you, in the fucking Matrix? Like, are you flipping around? It's like,
glad I had all these.
Like, what a retard.
Yeah, and the fact.
And it makes, like, responsible gun owners look bad, you know?
It's like, God,
well, I don't know.
I used it as an argument to why we definitely need the Second Amendment, because crazy assholes like him carry so much, and I'd rather have a gun than not when he's walking around.
Yeah, there you go. There's a great
that's
the way to flip it amongst those, like, look, because the same individuals that marched against these white nationalists are probably those gun grabbing. This is why we need gun control, because of people. And I'm like, this is why you need a gun.
Yes,
because mentally fucking unstable motherfuckers like Chris Cantwell,
there's a
who are
great
on meth, that are going around with goddamn citronella tiki torches. Like, this is why you need guns. Like, like, like.
I remember reading this great article.
Take arguments and flip them.
Yeah. I remember reading this great article that made the argument that gun control is really a racist policy.
Exactly.
Because like the people that really need it the most are the people that are like victims of the drug war and live in these communities that are just filled with violence. And it's like, so you want to strip their right to defend themselves, and you're just going to assume the gangs are just going to trade in their guns for puppies.
Earlier tonight, I'm on the way over, and I stopped at the Rofo, and this guy came in, like this like skinny older black gentleman came in, and he had like Metro. He had a badge, and his golf shirt was like Metro loss prevention services, security loss prevention services. But dude was open. He had open carry, he had mace, but then he has badge. And I'm like, and I'm in line waiting for the register, and I'm like, how are you able to carry? And he's just like, well, I'm an off-duty police officer, but I also. He's like, I'm an off-duty Baltimore City police officer, but I also security. I'm like, where the like.
What?
Okay, like, and I said, maybe if more individuals could actually carry in the city of Baltimore, the violence would go down. He's like, no, it would be threefold.
Oh, you said that to him?
I fucking said it.
Good.
I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like,
Well, yeah, why not?
and I was like, but I was like, but he's like, no, it'd be worse. And I'm like, no, because
would be
in the city of Baltimore, well, just in Maryland, just to have, now granted, this went into effect, I already bought mine, but just to purchase, to have, not just to carry, but to just have firearms in your home, i.e. a handgun. Just any type of handgun.
Well, it's handgun.
You need to go through, one, you have to pay for the class. I think it's like $200 to $300. You have to go through, I don't know how many hours of training.
Yeah.
Just before you even purchase said firearm. So if you're in some crime-riddled, drug-infested welfare state in Baltimore City and you're a homeowner, you're a business owner, just to have it on your premises, that is regressive. That is an regressive tax, and a violation on your individual rights to self-defense. That is
Actually, I'd say it's a progressive tax.
well, it's progressive, but it's also, I mean,
It's ultimately
They think
regressive.
it is.
because they're
I mean,
based.
when are we regressing to? Because we used to have more gun freedom.
Well, that's what I'm getting.
I mean, that's one freedom that we've lost throughout the years. Is
but
gun freedom.
now they're making it even harder. They're making it even
I know.
harder.
So that way, I mean, it's not like we're going back. It's
Right.
like we're going forward with the progressives.
Yeah. But it's just, and the fact that some police officer, like, really? You fucking think that, asshole?
I actually, funny to counter that, or to add to that, I'm a drug dealer of mine. We sat and were talking, and I had probably a good hour and a half debate with him and his friend and someone else who all thought that drugs should not be legal because it would cause more violence. And like this was before this was before Colorado and everything really happened. This was a couple years ago, and he's still in business, but he was very against it. And I'm like, you deal fucking weed? Are you serious? You don't see the benefits of no? It'll make things worse. Crime will go up. Couple years later, weed becomes legal in Colorado. Crime drops. Opioid overdoses drop. He's all for it. Oh, legalization, da da da. And I'm like, you what? No, no. But when you're in it, you can't see it sometimes, and it sucks. That people like he's a police officer. He thinks if everyone had a gun, it would be worse. When he doesn't see the positive side of people are less likely going to attack you if they think you're armed.
Yeah, if
there's that chance.
Doubt.
Yeah, an armed society is a polite society.
Yeah,
yes.
sure. You go to a gun show, people are very very friendly.
Yeah, when was the last time there was a shooting at a gun show?
That's a good argument. Ooh.
Yeah, it's probably the safest you'll ever feel, except when you're thinking like maybe there's like some like FBI spook in the room. You don't feel good
like
about
some
that.
agent. Some agent.
I mean, that's my biggest fear at a gun show.
Well, there's usually a ton of cops there too.
Just this morning, I go to the Baltimore. I go to the farmers market on Sunday mornings, and they have armed. They're probably off-duty police officers like armed. I'm like, fuck, do you need armed security? Like. The farmer's market is paying, let me get my farm fresh eggs and my fucking
someone's raiding
my organic veggies.
Someone's raiding the artisanal cheeses, man.
Like, why do you need armed security? Like, that's pathetic. Like that they need to pay to have off-duty police officers, most likely, to be armed and present themselves like, well, you feel safe here. This is your safe space at the farmers market.
But isn't that like sort of going to what she's saying about how like, imagine if they weren't police officers, if they're just regular people, that looked like normal people carrying guns. If you feel safe with a cop having a gun, why would you not feel safe? But people trust authority. That's the factor.
And the people know that the cops went through training and know how to handle
but
the
did
gun.
They though? I mean, let's be honest.
Well,
I see.
What kind of training did they get?
I mean, let's be real here. I mean, I mean, it's just.
Well, I think that, but to that point, I think that tide is turning. Where I think more people. I haven't seen any polls, but I imagine more people are becoming more distrustful of police.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely on the in the liberal communities, and people are more open to arming themselves now. Actually, I've had a couple of liberal friends who were against guns, and I was like, And they one of them texted me and they were like, I think I need to get a gun. And I was like, I fucking told you so.
But wait, why? What was their reasoning for wanting a gun? Just general like Trump fear.
Yeah, Trump fear.
Yeah.
Which,
Trump fear.
I mean, I'll take what I can get at this point. But
yeah. No, I mean,
Like I
I'm
said,
all for it.
that's a pro to Trump right there.
What?
I said that's a pro to Trump right there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if he's got more people buying guns, if he's got liberals buying guns,
Dude, he's got people he's got liberals buying guns. He's got liberals talking about secession.
Yeah.
Yes. Dude, he is the best president we've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great.
Assuming we don't go to fucking World War III.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I should prepare for World War III or Civil War II.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, Hillary was sounding like she wanted to take us to World War III with Russia right off the bat. So,
Yeah.
It would have happened either way.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, it's either way. Like
Globalist.
Exactly. You know, none of these guys deserve the Nobel Peace Prize.
Speaking of globalists, Steve Bannon, who's the leader in the war against the globalists with Alex Jones, he was fired this week.
Totally gone.
Bye-bye.
And apparently now he's launching a war on the White House and rejoining Breitbart.
I mean, who's the? I don't know. You wonder.
He's
I don't know what to
saying
think
the
is
swamp.
real.
The swamp got to Trump.
Well, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, you hire a general to be your. I mean, it's a total shit show.
Yeah, look at the people making the foreign policy. Like, you know what I mean? It's all these deep state, military,
And that is one
complex.
positive thing you can say about Bannon. All the nationalist stuff aside.
Well, look,
like he was very, he seemed to be mostly anti-war, or at least like non-interventionist.
He was removed from the
NSC.
Yeah, the
when the
Security
Syria
Council
thing happened.
Yeah, he was removed because he was not involved in the deep state and the war machine and the propaganda machine and the Pentagon agenda and the military industrial complex. So he's removed from that and now completely removed. That could be a positive. I don't know.
Yeah,
nowadays I just look for silver linings.
It'll be kind of
That's all
interesting
you
to see
can
what
do.
happens because I mean, regardless of what you think of him being a right wing propagandist or whatever people think, like you were saying, is like now that he's gone, is he going to use Breitbart as a weapon against like the deep state? You know what I mean? Or it's because I feel like a lot of people on the left that criticize. I mean, I'm no fan of Bannon's right wing populism and all that, but like. When you think about who's our biggest enemy is the people in there, the bankers, the military industrial complex, the people who are really running the show who didn't want people like him in the cabinet. Like, what's going to happen now if he starts to, I don't know.
And he's got to have some secrets too.
That's what I'm saying.
Look
what
at
if he
Andrew
unleashes?
Breitbart. Look at the circumstances of his death.
Oh yeah, well, go on about that.
Fiery car crash,
right,
with no other cars involved.
Yeah,
like very sketchy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, the one thing,
and he was going to blow the lid off of
something.
Yeah, probably some Hillary
Hillary
scandals or some like.
Well, they invented the heart attack gun back in like what, the 60s?
What was it?
The heart attack gun.
Yeah, I mean,
the CIA, they did a whole thing on
MK Ultra.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, the heart attack.
That's
gun.
like out in the
You never heard of the heart?
too.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a real.
Was it shoot like a pulse at you?
God, it's been a really long time.
I mean, there's a.
Well, now they can just hack cars and do it.
Well,
That's all you.
that's-
You just hack the car and drive it off into a tree and.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think like, I don't know. It's crazy times we're living in. So who knows? Maybe this could be a positive. That the fact that he's out and that
That's
he
what
was
I'm
on the inner
wondering.
circle
Yeah.
and saw it firsthand. Like,
Well, a lot of this stuff is coming to light, and I think they know it, and it's never been exposed before. People weren't aware of why we're always at war, and what the Federal Reserve does and things like that. And now, like, some of that stuff is really starting to come out into the open. Like, I think sort of through all this stuff that's happening with people in his cabinet and everything, and it's crazy to see what's going to happen.
I mean, it's definitely like he was definitely not an insider, and he definitely had the populism, and he just rode the wave.
Yeah,
but I think they got to him. It was like Kennedy. They sat
Oh,
down
yeah.
with him and be like, hey,
all right, I'm going to show you this
Well,
video.
I don't even know if they.
you know,
I don't even know if they got to. I don't know if there was anything to get. Like, I don't think he had any like master plan that he was
No.
planning on executing. He was just wanted to be president. you know.
Yeah.
And he probably had Bannon, you know, Bannon was running his propaganda machine. And so Bannon's like, well, if I'm going to do this for you, I have some things I need you to do. But then he gets in and he starts pulling in, you know, McMasters and like all these fuckers. And now it's like, well, okay, now these guys are running the show. But I don't think it was like, it wasn't like Ron Paul got into office and then all of a sudden like he got turned into a statist. Like Donald Trump isn't like a philosophical, you know, committed person to any sort of ideology. He's just an egomaniac, really.
Pretty much.
Do you guys think there's a chance that he would resign? A lot of people are talking about that.
Apparently,
like,
his like ex.
I don't know. It's
apparently his like co-author for, what was his book? The Art of the Deal.
Yeah.
Apparently, that guy said that he thinks Trump's going to resign soon.
Yeah, that's what my dad was saying.
Yeah. And he regrets writing the book too. He's like, that was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Although he probably made millions of dollars.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it does seem like the whole, you know, house of cards is falling down around him.
Yeah.
It's like, how much longer does he want to put up with that before he's just like... Because, you know, if he resigns, he can be like, you know, the globalists, they got to me, or something like that. You know? And they forced me to resign.
He could save face.
Instead of, like, getting impeached or watching everything, like, collapse around him and, like, then actually being...
Or being the captain of the ship that, you know...
Yeah, I mean, because like right now the stock market's doing amazing, like the house market's doing.
Gotta
like,
worry about that. Stock market's at an all-time high, but also Bitcoin's at an all-time high.
Yeah, yeah.
Bitcoin.
But I'm saying if he leaves the office now while he's on top, kind of,
all right,
and like cooks up some fake news about how
like I tried,
but they forced me out.
Yeah.
You know, the globalists, the you know,
to save his ego.
To save his ego,
That's
like
what he would do.
I could see him doing that. You know.
Because he's been, oh no, there were tons for my inauguration. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, a ton of people will believe him too.
Yeah, that's he spout, oh, that's fake news. It's like, oh, there were more people at my inauguration than the Women's March. I was there.
Yeah.
There really weren't. I couldn't even get on the damn train. Like, our train got stopped because there were so many fucking people there. It was insane. And
the Women's March or the
Women's March, the 500,000 or something like that.
I mean, there was a shitload of people at like outside of the inauguration protesting. I was there for that.
Oh, for that, yeah.
Yeah. No, that was insane. There was probably more people there than were actually like in the
inauguration.
In the fence.
Yeah.
It was pretty nuts.
It's amazing though how Trump supporters are like astounded. You know what I mean? That like they're being let down with like all these promises and all these globalists that he put that are running the show now. They're like, it's like, are you really fucking surprised? Like, what do you think happens?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I wish we just had a pothead for president. It'd be so much easier.
Fucking hell of a lot better than.
I want to make a meme. Do you miss me? Do you miss me for getting Aleppo for like a couple seconds and a few other flaws? But seriously,
would have been infinitely better.
Right? He would have actually like brought the troops home and started working on the drug war and started working on the shit that mattered at home and not out there. Yep. But nope, he forgot what Aleppo was for like 0.5 seconds.
Yep. So, oh my God, he doesn't know this, this area where we're at war where we shouldn't even fucking be,
Did you even hear his answer to the question? Like, it talked about getting us out of there. It was an actual reasonable thing. And he was, the thing that gets to me a lot is that people are so skeptical of libertarianism when you try to bring it to them, but they will not be skeptical of anything else.
Oh
they
my
will
God,
take
it's
bold
insane.
face what the liberals and what the conservatives say. But if you say, "Oh, libertarianism," well, I'm still thinking about it. I'm really skeptical. I don't think it works. What?
And you know what people say to me all the time,
What?
People say that other people say about like the things I post on Facebook and everything. They're like, "Oh, CW, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that he says, but he does make some really good points, and I think he speaks the truth." And it's like, then what do you mean why don't you agree with any of it? Like, are you that stuck in your paradigm where you can't like take a little thing and...
They can't question their... It's almost, I mean, to say it's almost like a religion. They can't question their own religion. They can, oh, well, the Islams are actually wrong, but they can't question their own Christianity because, oh, no, we're not wrong. And it's like...
Right.
Yeah.
Can you be skeptical about everything in your life, not just what you've been told to believe?
So it's funny you bring that up because that was another chapter in this book. You guys got to read this fucking book. It's amazing.
What was it called?
It's called Influence.
Influence.
Yeah.
I got that part. What was the...
it's his last name's Cialdini or CLD. It's CIALDINI. You know if that comes up.
Cialdini.
But anyway, so we had this. So there's another thing called I think it's called like the consistency principle or something, where people have this sort of desire or this like strong impulse to just remain consistent. And like that sounds, in theory, it sounds good, but it isn't good when your initial basis is flawed. So like if you have this concept of yourself as like, I'm a liberal and I hate racism and I love the poor and all this stuff, and then someone comes in and says, well, you know, like the welfare state actually hurts the poor. You know that gun control is actually like a racist policy, and you start throwing this at them, the consistency principle kicks and they're like, no, you're wrong. I'm a liberal. This is what I believe. Like, if I'm a liberal and I believe these things, therefore these things are liberal. It's like there's... Mm-hmm. So it's hard to shake their foundation and be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm actually a libertarian. It's hard to get people to sort of overcome that. And it's like the confirmation bias thing too. But it's more like if you have this strong like pull, whether it's like ideologically based or just like preferences or whatever, it's hard for someone to come in and like fuck with that and get you to like believe something that's completely contradictory, even if that contradictory belief has the same results, like poor people are treated better, or people are wealthy, or whatever it is. So check out that book. I
find like a lot of times you can talk to someone until they're blue in the face, and they're always going to go back to just like what you're saying, like I'm this, I got, and it's nothing's going to ever change their mindset until something actually happens to them in the real world,
or something big, or like Trump comes out and he goes, "I was just playing it,"
What's that? Or Chris Cantwell.
Yeah. But until something
Chris
happens
Cantwell's
to them,
just a slow descent into madness.
But until someone actually has something personally happen to them, then they're not going to change their belief system until they actually witness something firsthand. They might not start questioning things. They're just going to always be in that echo chamber.
Did you see that one guy who there was an article about him over the past 10 years? He's been getting KKK members to leave by going and befriending all of them. And what he'll do is when he comes in, he's like, oh, talk to me. Tell me why you think you should lynch me. Tell me why you think I'm lesser than you. Get to know me. You don't even know me and you hate me. And he's collected memorabilia. They'll give him their robes when they leave the group, because he goes, friendship is the way to get these people to see. And clearly he's black, because I can't really go in there as a white person and be like, hey, get to know me, and I'm not the person they hate, so it's hard for us, whereas it's almost like you have to find a way to befriend and be like, well, let me if you know someone who doesn't know black people, like, here, come meet some of my friends, let's go out, let's do something, let's interact.
I guess like sort of the analog of that with libertarianism is sort of getting people, because like there's this common perception that like libertarians don't care about the poor, right? Because we want to get rid of the welfare state. It's like, oh, you must hate the poor.
People don't believe that. People. Libertarianism will work. Oh, well, because social welfare didn't start until the government started it, and people weren't caring about other people. Like, people were caring about other people. You just didn't hear about it because it was back in the 1700s and there's no documents of it.
Right.
I mean, you can't get everything that happened at that time,
right.
But they just don't have any faith in humanity, which you can lose easily.
And I also try to point out to them on that token about helping the poor, because their belief system, you talk about liberals and stuff, I try to explain to them why, when the government mandates it, that it's violence and it's coercion, and like, because they just don't think about that. So I think you sort of hit them from that angle too. Well, if you and that's kind of like what you were saying. With my job, I've always had to, I get a 1099, so I've always had to pay my own taxes in. So I sort of ask people, like, well, have you ever owned a business? Have you ever been a subcontractor or anything? It's because a lot of people that support taxation and the welfare and everything, it's like they always just get their paycheck and their taxes are taken out already. They've never had to write that out,
they'll get a refund at the end of the year
and understand what it's like. You know what I mean? Like,
they tax you more if you're self-employed. This is my first year on a 1099, and fuck the government.
Yeah, you know how it is,
dude. I like $500-600 a month in taxes alone, and I made maybe 35-40 grand.
Are you trying to do
year.
quarterly, or are you paying it at the end of the year?
I've learned I need to do quarterly.
I try to,
learned.
but you know how sometimes you just
Life,
fucking can't.
and it's my money.
Yeah.
Why do I have to give it to you?
And I don't keep a lot of money in the bank, so it's like when you have all that money, you know, just sitting there in a safe or something, you're like, motherfucker.
I have to give how much?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. $6 grand? Are you?
That's what I'm kind of dealing with right now. Is like I'm straight like 1099. I'm like swimming. Like, how am I gonna do this? Handle this? Like 2 different jobs, 1099. Like, well, now, but you know, or prior, you know, if it comes out of your check, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, even when it was coming out of my check, I didn't want to fucking look at it. Like, I didn't go to the ADP website because I'm like, I don't want to know how much I should be taking home.
Yeah.
I don't want to know how much
I was getting because my boss, my old boss never got like direct.
So I had direct deposit.
Yeah.
Oh, so you got like the
so
old
I got
school,
the check, and then it's got like
the breakdown,
and it's got the breakdown of like all the fucking theft that's happening. It's like Social Security, FICA, like all this shit. And I'm just like getting angry,
dude. For years, like for the past couple.
And then
years,
I'm like doing the math. I'm like, man, if I didn't have to pay this, you know, I'd have, you know, this much more money coming in every month, and then I could
save
do this.
for this and do this.
And that was always the argument, or not argument, but a way of like, until people actually see that, they don't see that, and they don't see like, oh, if I wasn't paying all this fucking to me, like, this was all thiefed out of my paycheck, I could just take a little bit, save for my own fucking retirement. I don't need Social Security.
Yeah.
I could put my own aside for my own health insurance or health savings account, and not only that, but I could put quite a bit more money into a nonprofit that's actually going to be the direct change and actually help individuals that are in the most need, which is private charity that is better suited to handle and take care of those that slip through the cracks in society than than the government that basically is a vicious cycle of perpetual. Because let's face it, your money goes to all these offices. It's government employment. Do you really think these
it's
fucking
bureaucratic
expenses that live that work for the government their whole lives want to solve the ills of society?
Dude.
It's a jobs program. Who did you work for?
Before I was like a libertarian, I was like kind of just getting into it, and this like pushed me along. Actually, I worked for the Department of Human Resources.
Oh wow!
Which is like the fucking
government.
So this is what I'm getting at. Until people actually,
I mean, it was like an assistantship for college. Technically, I was getting paid by the college, but I'm sure it came from taxpayers. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
But my point being, like, oh man, the people there were it's basically, that is a welfare. Like,
exactly.
Working for there is like being on welfare, because like these people didn't do shit.
Right.
Nothing got done. Like, I didn't really do anything. I mean, like, honestly, like, I went to Lexington Market like every day, like for like 3 hours.
my dad made a really good point.
Because it was like civilian world. Hey, take a 3-hour lunch. Hey, motherfucker, you're not getting paid.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, and since then, I've obviously I'll never work for the government again.
Yeah.
I've always worked for like small businesses, startups. So
until actually, and that's the thing, until someone goes in with an open mind, actually sees things firsthand, I don't think you're going to change their paradigm. They actually think like, oh, I'm paying these taxes, it goes to this, it's actually help, you know, until they actually
the roads and the social programs. No, you're fucking paying bureaucrats.
Yeah. My dad made a really good point. He said if everyone had to write a check at the end of the month in taxes that they paid out of their paycheck, they would get angry.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, they would, but that's why they don't do it that way.
Yeah, I guess maybe like early on, I was kind of woke because my dad was self-employed. His, you know, so it's like
when you're self-employed, you see a bigger picture. It's interesting.
Or if you work for like a small business and you can talk to the owner, and he's bitching about like taxes or like regulations or whatever, and you're like,
It's why all the small business owners went for Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, because of what he was going to do for the businesses. And I'm sorry, if the businesses don't have enough money to pay me, we don't have jobs.
Yeah.
So stop taxing them like that.
Right.
Let us keep our money.
And that's another thing to kind of explain to the liberal people that are like, oh, you guys just, all you care about is big business. It's like, no. actually, the problem is with all these regulations and taxation, the little businesses are struggling uphill to become big businesses, whereas the already entrenched big corporations, they don't give a fuck about taxes, like, or they have the means to like offshore their taxes, or you know, whatever it is. And I'm obviously like, I'm all for getting rid of taxes for everybody, whether you're a corporation or not, but you know, the problem, you know, the whole 1% and all that shit, it's like part of that is just a product of things like taxation regulation that allow, once you can handle it, like the competition that you would normally face is severely diminished.
Because it's written into law. The owners of the corporations with all the money send they really need to outlaw lobbyists is what they need to do.
Yeah.
But they send the lobbyists in and the lobbyists pass a bill. I mean, if you look at half the bills passed, the guys who are passing it have some sort of company connected to the bill, and they're making a pretty penny from
Going
it.
back to what we were talking about, like politicians. I mean, let's talk to your average politician. They're fucking morons. Do you really think they're writing this shit? Like, do they really think like
they don't even read it?
Do you think like their staff and their office they're actually writing this shit? No. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, let's face it. You talk. So exactly. I mean, we're preaching in the choir here, but yeah,
true.
It's
But I think going back to like the idea of tactics and how to talk to people. You know, you kind of have to be aware of these like psychological things that people experience, and you kind of have to figure out ways to work around them.
I think we all have to be aware about that, and I think maybe my stepping away from social media is maybe what we've been having a conversation tonight is how better can we engage with people and talk with people, or how can we?
But the thing is, we have this idea that like oh, if you just present somebody with a rational argument, like. They're automatically just gonna be like, "Oh yeah, you're right." Like that's exactly correct. But that's never how it works. Like, and rarely does it work. It's like you gotta. I mean, there's a number of things you can do, but like, I mean, if you want to go that route, like, it's got to be just like a constant pounding until like you loosen up something in their head, and they're like, "Oh, you know what?" And they can kind of gradually transition out of their mode of thought.
It's not
into
overnight.
Yeah, it can't be. It's
I mean,
never gonna be.
Even
overnight.
when I found Ron Paul, I was still like for a couple years in that like half statist, half libertarian, and then libertarian, and then anarchist. You know what I mean? It took a number of years, and you kind of go there almost sometimes kicking and screaming, like you're almost like fighting against like, God, this is the truth. Like, do I really believe this? Do I want to hear this or not?
Yeah.
You know? And then finally,
in college, I was actually like a socialist in college.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And my roommate senior year was a Ron Paul supporter in like 2008. And like we'd have discussions a lot, and like I always agreed with him on like the drug war stuff, the wars. Yeah, you know, this was like Iraq war time. Well, I guess it still is Iraq war time, but it was the height of the close to the height of the Iraq war, or somewhere around there. Well, but anyways, so yeah, I agreed with him on that shit. But then it always came down to like big business or like or more roads. You know, I was like, well, who's gonna pave the road? You know. Yeah. Although he wasn't really an anarchist, so maybe it wasn't the roads thing. I think it was just more like, oh, you can't just let private companies just do whatever they want. Like, you need the government to control them and make sure they don't fuck over people. You know, I guess that was the one thing like I couldn't really get past. And then I also had like the Marxist bullshit in my brain rattling around.
Compliments of the indoctrination camps.
Yeah, I mean, actually, like I didn't get a lot of that from college, to be honest with you. I mean, I did like read. I think we did read some Karl Marx in philosophy class.
In high school or college?
College, I'm talking about. That was like when I kind of became like a socialist.
Well, even like in, I don't know, look at public education. Even in college, they always like, you take an economics class, they always like, it's all that like mixed economy bullshit. Like, oh, you need a little bit of this. It's all Keynesian. Yeah, it's all.
But I'm talking like straight social. I'm talking like, I read like the fucking Communist Manifesto and that kind of shit. And I was like rooting for like the fucking, like I didn't want them to do the bailout. Because I thought like the economy would collapse and then we could have fucking communism or something. Dude, it was really just like this really, really smart kid, like the smartest kid in my class in high school. Like senior year, he like just dumped all this shit on me about like socialism and Karl Marx and like Engels and all that shit. And I was like, oh man.
Why is it always like that? Do you ever notice that? Like it's always that one like super
like this is like a 1600 SAT, like old SAT.
Yeah.
You know, like super smart guy. And like I think he ended up majoring in philosophy at Princeton.
Jesus. Yeah.
I don't know if he's still a socialist.
One of my friends from high school, and it's like we talk a little bit, but he's definitely, and he was on the Bernie train, and he's definitely like a socialist, and he gets into like I guess maybe I don't know, but he was again like he was one of the like smartest kid in the class. Like he's
why does it
he's
happen?
like got
Well,
a degree
I think
in
part
like
of it is
microbiology or something. Like
Yeah.
he just got his master or something. I
Well,
don't know.
I think part of it is, the smarter people are the ones who tend to, reject authority.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the thing about like socialism is like compared to like what we have now, like it is rejecting the current authority.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It is rejecting the current establishment, the current status quo.
Yeah.
So like in a way, like I'm not like I think it actually led me to libertarianism because it made me start questioning like what's really like, is the government good? Like is I guess back then I would have said capitalism, but really what I was thinking about was cronyism. You know, like is this good? Like is this really like is like everything people are saying just about society and life and all this stuff, like is this really what's going on, or is there something else? And unfortunately like I picked the wrong alternative at the time.
Yeah,
but ultimately I think like just having my mind open to like different
to
ideas outside of the norm ultimately led me to
even
voluntarism.
my friend from high school, like I mean I haven't spoke to him in years in person, but we just kind of connected via Facebook, just mainly because I just poked fun at him because he'd post like some leftist memes and shit, and I was just like, the left can't meme. And I posted the Bernie meme, like it was Liberty Memes posted it. It was a picture of Bernie. It was just like, Liberty Meme should pay its fair share and like give a certain portion to left meme groups because the left can't meme or something, like they should pay their fair share.
Yeah.
And I just sent it to him on Messenger. I was like, further proof the left can't meme. And he just kind of like gave me a thumbs up and was laughing. He's like, yeah, you're pretty he's like, yeah, you're right. Libertarian memes are pretty like on point. Like the left sucks at TV.
Yeah, I mean,
and
every time I post like a liberty, like I'm in a WhatsApp conversation with like, and everyone in there is like pretty much like status, right?
Yeah.
Varying degrees. But I'll share memes from Liberty Memes all the time, and I always get laughs, dude. Like they're always
so what's going on. Like I just basically said, like I told him, I said proof that liberty is like you could have. I forget how we got on the topic, but I said, well, you can have a socialist society or a communist like commune within a libertarian society, but you can't have it the other way.
right.
And he was like, I agree. And he said he basically was I forget what he called it, but I mean, I'm like, he's on like some, I don't know, but the fact that he could see a common, I don't know. I think that's the thing. You got to have conversations with people and try to meet where, especially nowadays. Cause,
that's why I prefer like conversation to debate.
Yeah,
You know?
definitely.
I mean, your point aside of like educating through other people saying it, like that's definitely valid, but I prefer to like approach it like, oh, let's have a conversation about this issue and like, and sometimes maybe we can make some progress.
I mean, it's not every approach is for everyone, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like a lot because I've had some friends who I didn't expect to support Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
And almost all of my friends were surprised I didn't like him at all. And they were like, "What? You're not voting for Bernie?" And I was like, "Fuck no. He's just as bad as the other guys. He's for socialism and this whole social construct." And I feel like the reason he got to so many people our age, so many intelligent people, is because of his appeal to emotion. He just grabbed what he could, and well, we need to give this for people. And like, I talked to someone who like said they liked Gary Johnson, and she goes, "Well, I think college should be free for everyone. It's free for all the other countries." I'm like, "What?
I hate
you
that
like
argument.
Gary Johnson and you think that? This doesn't line up."
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I said they think emotions equal ethics, and they don't because they don't
Yeah.
understand what ethics actually are. And I think also, like socialism it's more. I don't know, or was more mainstream, whereas like anarcho-capitalism, libertarianism was kind of less accessible. Like nobody knew who Murray Rothbard was.
Yeah, you're
years
not
ago.
like I said, we read Karl Marx in philosophy class, but we didn't read Rothbard
or Mises.
And like I'll bring up these people, and
like,
who?
who?
Yeah, who? Yeah, like
here, go here, read this.
yeah, or it'll be like, oh, well, they're fringe, like they're fringe economists. They're not Keynes. They're not.
Or that whole argument, like that came up so much during like this past election, where it's like, well, it works here in Sweden, it works here in Denmark. It's like, okay, a country of X amount
Yeah.
Like get
with
the
a completely
There was
different
an
social
article- Yeah.
structure.
Who doesn't send their military around the world.
homogeneous like
And to
society.
say that it works is being very lenient as well.
Because if you look at it, it doesn't really work out that way.
Let's be a little analytic. Let's look into this a little further. You know, I hate that. It's such a lazy, like, well, it works in this country. It's got to work here in a country of diverse, like, millions upon millions of more people. Like, it's just
with a giant military budget.
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
It's like it just makes with the power to just print money out of thin air and just you can't compare. It's just that's so lazy. Well, it works over there, and it goes back to like that emotional. Just
yeah, man,
it's bad.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Bad,
Yeah.
sad,
But
sad.
Well, so I think that's probably about it for tonight.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
nailed
We're
it.
running a while.
Yeah.
I think we.
it's almost two hours, man.
Yeah,
Holy
we're in.
shit.
We're in.
Yeah.
Good conversation, guys.
Yeah,
great.
it's fun times, you know. And I just want to remind everybody that we've got T-shirts over at libertariancountry.com. If you put in the coupon code PRL or PRL podcast, you will receive a 10% discount. Also, you can. We're always accepting article submissions at thedailyliberator.com. So until next time, we're free. We're done.
Statism's footprint is the blood that is shed, drenching the flags of the tax bombs in red. Was its way of few at the expense of the many, soldiers and gods in a death machine. You can't justify killing by economic gain. For God, country, and democracy, you can put freedom at gunpoint in a foreign land. You support the troops, then bring them home. I believe that you will do the best for you. And I believe that we have the power, I hate the state, and I know I'm a slave. We can make the break the power. Society owes individuals nothing more than non-interference with natural rights. Once a virtuous person fully comprehends the non-aggression principle, the violence of the state becomes obsolete.